So I'd like to start by asking, in your opinion, what organizations are seeing the biggest surge in donations in the wake of protests and COVID-19?
At Charity Navigator, we have a list of 27 organizations focused on civil rights, education, and legal representation. And there's been, from individual donations, there's been an upsurge of over 4,000% in giving to those organizations. These are small individual donations. Some of the organizations in question would be Equal Justice Initiative, the NAACP, the American Civil Liberties Union.
Now, unfortunately, when you do have something like this happen, and a lot of notable charities are on there, but there are also some bad actors as well, perhaps trying to scam people. What sort of concerns can arise when donating online, and how can donors ensure that the organization is legitimate and the funds are going where they claim?
It's a great question, because when there's a crisis or a situation like we've been living through, there's a great outpouring and people really want to give. And unfortunately, there's also people that are taking advantage of that emotional desire to help another person. The best thing that you can do is to verify that you're giving to a legitimate nonprofit, a 501c3 organization, and the easiest way to do that is to use a platform like charitynavigator.org, look up the name or look up their employee identification number and see if they show up in the database. We have a database of over 1.6 million nonprofits, and that will help you at a start just know it's real. Then after that, you can look for a rating.
And there really has been an incredible outpouring. I mean, talk about some of the organizations that have had to actually cut off donations because there's been such an outpouring. Is this unprecedented?
So the Minnesota Freedom Fund actually stopped receiving funds. They said, look, we just hit $20 million. We can't take any more. We won't be able to reuse that money. What's interesting is they stopped receiving funds, and then a few weeks later they started again. It's highly unprecedented. But the reality is this was a small organization with a very, very focused mission, and they wanted to be careful that they weren't going to have surplus funds that they couldn't actually make use of. And so I think it was a very noble movement on their part to tell people, please give to another organization who can help.
And how is this sort of giving different from what we usually see towards the end of the year with charitable giving?
I think it's significantly different because in year-end giving, people are giving either for end-of-year holiday, the giving back, it's planned giving, it's thought about, it's also looking for possibly a tax donation, a tax write-off. When we have a crisis, people are not necessarily giving to the causes that they normally support. They're giving to help human beings at a time of crisis. And so it's very spontaneous, it's very quick, and that's actually where there's the greatest opportunity for to be taken advantage of, because people are not doing quite as much research.
Now, this is a very unique situation because unlike, say, a natural disaster where you can really pinpoint where the funding is needed most within a certain time frame and there's a potential end in sight, what sort of giving approach is most helpful when you're dealing with a systemic issue like racism?
I think you need to look for an organization that, first of all, is going to be around, that will actually live through whatever process we go through to get to a resolution or an end of racism. So I want to look for a strong organization that has a strong track record of actually making a difference. Will they be here tomorrow and in 10 years? And then in terms of my own giving, maybe I don't give a large donation, but I give donations on a monthly basis. And so I ensure that my giving is sustainable. Because one thing that's really important is that we get caught up in the crisis, we make a donation, and then we forget about it. And those organizations that are actually doing the real work and the hard work that are out there, they need your money now, and they're going to need your money in 6 months, they're going to need your money 2 years from now. And this is how they actually can make a difference, is through sustained funding.
And you talk about high-impact organizations. What can some of these organizations do to do that, whether they're small or some of these larger groups?
But the size doesn't really matter. So a small organization can have a high impact as well as a larger organization. What's tricky is how one measures one's impact and one articulates it and then improves upon it. This is something that as a donor, I want to ask an organization, what impact have you made? And really shift your giving perspective to more something of investing in social change. And like any investment, you're going to follow up on it. You're going to see what's the return on my investment, and that way maybe we get somewhere that's more beneficial.